Alright, getting ready to make our first breakfast since I've moved back into the van. I decided to go simple this morning because it's my first day back, and that means picking up these 50-cent breakfast, well not breakfast, but regular patio burritos from Walmart. They're 50 cents each, so I spent $1 for breakfast. And what I'm going to do is heat those up in my rice cooker, which is hooked up to the inverter cooking system. But for those of you who are new, I thought I'd go ahead and share with you how you get like free ice, okay? You basically have to carry these cups with you. You can buy them from Racetrack or Cumberland Farms or whatever with your soda, or you can just buy a cup of ice. They usually sell them for 25 cents. But after you use it up, save the cups, because you can get free ice refills at almost pretty much any convenience store, like 7-Eleven, Racetrack, Cumberland Farms, even McDonald's. Just walk in there with your empty cup. I would only take one. And ask them. Say, do you mind if I get some ice? 99.9% of the time they'll say yes, no problem. You can just fill it up with ice. Now, I have never had anyone say no. But this particular Walmart here has a Subway. So I just went in there with my cup, asked for ice, and voila, I have ice, which I'll be putting into my ice cooler right here. I brought a little bit of food from the house. Those two bottles had been ice bottles yesterday, but they thawed out. I'm going to put this cup here, and I need to find my lid for that cup so it doesn't spill. But hopefully it should keep my food, my meat in here cold, so that tonight I can cook up dinner with it. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and start up the inverter cooking system here and try to get the burritos cooking while I drive to work. To begin the cooking process, I open up the burritos, stick them into the rice cooker, and I'll put the lid on it just to seal it in and seal the heat. I do have these bungee cords that I put here to lock things into place so that if we go flying around, this stuff doesn't fly on me. And that way it doesn't fly. Oh look, I found my cap here for the ice. I'll put it here so in case there's a spill, it won't spill everywhere. There we go. Anyhow, once I have that going, I also have plugged in the unit to the inverter, but I haven't turned anything on. First thing you want to do is turn the engine on so that we're generating electricity. Okay, at this point, the car is running, so the alternator is generating electricity. Clean my windshield here. So we're generating electricity into the system, but it's not connected. So I have my switch here, which connects the vehicle battery that under the hood of the vehicle to the house battery, which is behind me. So I flip this, and that will connect the two systems. Once I do that, the battery there is connected through the switch to here, to the inverter, and this other battery down here. Ignore this, this is just my little booster that I'll be charging up here in a minute. We're out by the airport, so I apologize for the noise. Now, to start the cooking process, I have to turn the inverter on. This is the, I'll let the plane go by here. See the plane? That was fun trying to sleep through all the airplanes landing last night. Anyhow, I start the system by turning the inverter on. So we're at this point generating 120 volts. You can see it's starting off at pulling 21 watts or so, 26, 21 watts. Because the inverter is on and the rice cooker is on, but it's on low mode. So what I do is I hit the switch here. Now you can hear the inverter kick in the fan because it's now in high mode. And it should be pulling about 300 watts. You can see we got 309 watts is what it's actually pulling. So the rice cooker is now working, the burritos are now cooking, and I can drive to work, which is what I'm going to do. Once I get to work, we'll see how well the burritos are cooked. But on my drive to work, I might open up the lid here and just flip the burritos just to get the other side to cook evenly. I'm essentially using the rice cooker as an oven right now, and that's how the food is cooking. But that's all there is to the cooking system. And when I finish, what I do is I just turn off the inverter And I unplugged this just in case I decide to turn the inverter on with the rice cooker. You don't want it plugged in because then it comes on and then you got a fire hazard. So I physically unplug it and I turn this off. Now, while this is running, I let it stay connected so that my battery doesn't drain down. Right now, let's look at our voltages. We have 12.6 in the system. It's because I used up a little bit of it last night while I was sleeping. And I had the fans on. So, you can see it's charging up. Running at 120 volts. And we got 310 watts that we're pulling out right now. I'm on my drive to work right now, and apparently we're stuck behind that school buses, which now it's finally shut its light off. It's been sitting here for like 10-15 minutes, holding up the traffic. Everybody's getting kind of mad. Trying to cut into this lane behind this dangerous truck because my GPS says I have to turn. So, alright. So, I am on my way to work for my first day back at Hessler, and I've got the food cooking right now. The rice cooker popped up going into warm mode because it had gotten too hot, and that's normal for the rice cooker to do that. It's kind of like a safety feature. When it gets too hot, it pops up and goes back to just warm mode. It doesn't, stay in high mode anymore. So you just simply let it cool down a little bit, and after about 10 minutes or so, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you can flip it back to high mode, which I'm going to try to do right now. So it's basically that switch that you use. Okay, I flipped it back to high mode so that it'll cook faster. At low mode, it was usually about like 20-22 watts. In high mode, it's using about 300. And so it can cook faster. That's the big difference between a rice cooker and a slow cooker. A slow cooker cooks slowly. It uses about 40 watts. Whereas a rice cooker uses 300 watts. Well, this small rice cooker. The big rice cooker can use as much as, 800 or 1600 watts. So they cook even faster. But, to me, it's kind of overkill to get such a big one because it's usually, I only make food for 1 or 2 people. And also, to use that many watts, is a big draw on the battery system. So I use a 300 watt one because it's more than adequate, and still cooks the food very fast. I can cook a steak with it. So it cooks pretty much anything that you would normally cook on a stove. So we're heading off to work right now, and the food is cooking, which is why I like the inverter cooking system. It's one of the benefits, in addition to being able to take the rice cooker and hook it up to 120 volt outlet at work or wherever, if I have access to it, or a hotel, if I happen to be staying in a hotel. But when I'm not in a hotel or whatever, I can cook in the vehicle, and typically I cook while I'm driving, like I'm doing right now. Some of you might be thinking it's dangerous to cook and drive, and it is, but with what I'm doing, I'm not really monitoring the system. It's kind of self-monitoring. I don't know if you heard it click there, that it got hot and it shut itself off again. It went to warm mode. It got really hot. But I don't really do anything with it. Once I have it locked down and I have the lid secured in place, I simply drive, the food cooks itself. It's not like where you have a propane or a butane system and you have to watch that fire. Can't have things spilling. Here, if there was a crash and it spilled, you could conceivably get burned, but I have the lid secured with the bungee cord, and the system's fairly safe. Speaking of safety, I thought I should point out that everybody watching this channel should realize I'm not an expert or claim that this is the way to do things. The way I have things wired and hooked up using a house switch and stuff is actually kind of unsafe. Ideal setting, you would use a 12 volt switch that's rated for that, But my personal experience was when I used a 12-volt switch, it kept melting. Maybe it was just crappy switches or whatever, but I went through 2 different switches, I think, maybe 3, well, 2 different models and 3 different switches total. They were 12-volt switches rated at 20 to 25 amps or so, and they kept melting on me. So that's how I ended up switching using a 120-volt 15-amp house switch in the system. So if you do the build and build your systems out like I do, know that you are taking a risk. But even doing it with 12-volt systems, you're still taking a risk. The whole idea of converting a van into a house you can live in, you know, is a risk. So proceed it, you know, at your own risk, with caution, and understand that, you know, I'm not saying that this is the way to do things. I'm just showing you the way I do things, and there's no guarantees or anything. Just showing you my personal experiences. So we have been driving, and the system is still cooking. It is on low mode, which means I need to flip it here in a moment, but I'm kind of waiting for traffic to chill out a little bit before I make any adjustments. But I'm nearly at the work location, and looks like I'm going to have about 20 minutes to study, you know, to eat and study before I have to start the show. I'm a little bit anxious because I haven't done it in like 7 or 8 months. So, you know, I'm hoping that it's like riding a bicycle. I'm hoping that it comes back to me, because if it doesn't, this is going to be a disaster. Because you'll have a crowd there, and you're supposed to look like you're talking. You're not supposed to look like you're doing a script. It's supposed to look like I'm just talking to the crowd. So we'll see what happens. It's not a bad ride. Luckily for me, you know, it doesn't look like traffic. I mean, traffic is fairly heavy, but not like super fast. So when I have trouble accelerating, it doesn't, you know, become too much of a danger. But I think this is all going to be doable. I think we'll be okay. I appreciate all of you with your kind thoughts and prayers, and I'll try to do updates as I can. Now that I'm back on the road, updates may become intermittent again. I did spot a library the other day, so I'm hoping to stop by there today and try to get some uploads up. See, we are at the Navy Exchange, the NEX, and I am going to see if I can get in here. It says do not enter. It's enter only over here. So I'm assuming this is where I can enter. Next is the Navy Post Exchange. What's the Navy Exchange? Like the Army and Air Force have the base exchange. The Navy have the NEX, I guess is what they call it. And I don't even know where I'm supposed to park, but I'm kind of early, and I'm thinking that I can park out here. So I'm just going to follow these little arrows and park out here out of the way. And all right, I've arrived at the Navy Exchange, and now it's just a matter of waiting for the food to cook, and then waiting for the store to open, and it's time to go in, and it's showtime. So here then is the finished product. Might not be the prettiest thing in the world, but I've shut the system off. It is nice and hot. Some of it's stuck to the rice pot, but it's hot. I'm munching it, and it's a decent hot breakfast for only $1. Until next time, everybody, bon appetit. I hope you're having a good day. Stay safe, and God bless you.